came. We are going to meet on the third Monday of every month. For the foreseeable future, it'll be right here. The next one is February 16th, and the next one after that is March 17th. So we hope you guys get enough out of this that you come again on February 17th and February 17th and March 16th. Right? Okay. Am I am I talking loud enough for the people in the back? Okay. Thanks. I'll just start at the beginning. The way that I personally got here was I wrote a bunch about the efforts to decriminalize psilocybin in this city and in others, and I wrote about the people that are in this room that made Initiative 301 happen. And raise your hand if you were involved in that initiative to decriminalize psilocybin in the city of Denver. Can I give y'all a round of applause? That is a way in which we are tangibly a little freer than we were, 9 months ago. Now, as y'all know, 301 does not legalize psilocybin. It remains a crime in the eyes of the state and the feds, and even in the city. But it does prevent the local cops from going after people for local grows. Does anybody want to throw anything else out on that issue? What's that? So for me writing about 301, I learned about mushrooms in and of themselves, and I'd never really known about them. And I learned from Travis and Hope is coming, that mushrooms are amazing little creatures. And they're funny little guys. They're not plants, and they're not animals. They're their own little thing. And there's Hope right here. Hope taught me about how mushrooms are super interesting. So when I asked them what's next after the campaign to decriminalize mushrooms, they said we want to start a cooperative to help people grow all mushrooms. That's all mushrooms. I'm going to say this over and over again. That's reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, oysters, anything that you want to grow. This is a good place to come and find out how to do it. So since the initiative passed, I've been growing different kinds of mushrooms. And I've been struggling at it because it's hard. So who here has grown mushrooms? Wow, that is great. Huh. That is huge. I was about to give y'all a 101 of how to grow mushrooms, but I don't know if it's that necessary. Okay, so mushrooms are not plants. They're kind of more like animals. So what the basics is, you take a jar and you put something in the jar for the mushrooms to eat. In this case, it's rice and vermiculite. You take a little syringe, you shoot it through a hole in the top. The mushroom mycelia colonizes this little bit. Then eventually you open up this top and you put the jar out into a bin, and then the little mushrooms fruit off of that bin. What's going on in this bin? What do we got there?
I think those are oysters. That's from Zach over there.
Zach, raise your hand. Zach's going to talk to us about his growing classes. But I need help. Like, I've grown, but I need help, you know? Like, these are my reishis, but I got a weird little, spot there. Like, what is that? Can I just cut that off? Do I have to throw away the whole thing? So that's the kind of thing that will be addressed here momentarily, correct? Great. And then I want to know, okay, I'm growing these glow-in-the-dark mushrooms. Like, why aren't they colonizing? First of all, did you know mushrooms glow in the dark? I didn't know that. Why aren't they colonizing? What am I doing wrong? Is my temperature wrong? Did I use the wrong substrate? What's going on? So this is a good place to help each other. Like, the idea of the Mushroom Cooperative comes from Travis and Hope. And the idea is they have looked at mushrooms carefully for a long time. And they have learned some of the incredible features of the mushrooms that they say that we can mimic. And I'm going to try to say what you say in a basic way. Mushrooms send out these little filaments, these little hyphae, right? And they look for resources. And when they grab the resources, they bring them back in to feed the rest of the organism, right? And these are little tiny things that don't have a center like a plant or an animal. They don't have one singular head or one singular root. They grow in interesting, organic, intelligent ways. They have an intelligence. And so, and we've seen this in laboratory things. Like, they did the subway map of, or the railway map of England, and they put a slime mold on it. I saw they did it Tokyo and England. They've done it in both places. And the slime mold found the efficient routes from the big city to the next big city. But not just one efficient route. They found alternate routes in case that one route got severed. They figured out another way to make sure that those two things are always connected. That is an intelligence that, with any luck, we can sort of try to mimic here. So I think our hope for the cooperative is it's going to be some like people standing up here like telling, you know, but it's also we want it to be a lot of people out, you know, all of us like finding routes that we can connect so that whoever knows why my glow-in-the-darks aren't growing can help me. I was going to put my reishi into cocoa. Someone told me that's not right. Someone said put it into poop. So I need to find someone who has poop, right? Wood chips. I need wood chips.
What about cow tipping?
So as long as helping ourselves grow, we need to keep each other safe with these things because they can be. And one of the ways that we can keep each other safe is by looking out for each other with contamination. Contamination is a very big problem. So, do you want to introduce yourself and tell what you're going to tell about, and then talk about contamination?
Yep, sure.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for coming out here. My name is Gary Hepperly, and I'm the owner of Fresh from the Farm Fungi, which is a gourmet mushroom farm in Denver. We grow beautiful oysters like these here. I'm going to talk to you guys about contamination in mushroom cultivation. So a little bit about my background. This is me 10 years ago. I used to work in a clinical micro lab in Buffalo, New York. So I did that for a little while before I moved out to Denver. And I have a bachelor's degree in medical technology. So I used to test people's blood for microbial contaminants. I'm pretty familiar with quality control in that regards. After that, I worked in a cannabis tissue culture lab. I cloned over 150 species, and from there I moved into the quality control side of cannabis, and I tested all the cannabis products for microbial contaminants like yeast and mold, salmonella, and E. coli. I was a supervisor for a little over a year at one of the testing facilities for the CDPHE. So I'm here to talk about bacterial and fungal contaminants in mycology. So this slide right here shows salmonella and E. coli growing on a petri dish. So in order to identify different microbial contaminants, you need to perform pretty extensive testing. So I'm trying to show you the laboratory side of identifying contaminants compared to what the average person who's growing mushrooms will come across. So this is bacterial contamination on the right. It's going to have a greasy look and a strong pungent odor to it. So if you ever see anything like this, discard those products right away. My philosophy is when in doubt, throw it out. So Salmonella and E. coli are pretty dangerous organisms. These are one of the two, I would say, most deadly organisms that you're going to come across when you're growing mushrooms. The good thing is that they're very rare and they're fairly susceptible to environmental factors, and as long as you cook your mushrooms, you will take care of any kind of bacterial contamination. So treat your mushrooms like meat at the grocery store, and make sure that you thoroughly cook your mushrooms before consuming them. So another kind of contaminants in growing mushrooms is fungal contaminants. So on the left here, this is some quality control plates that is pretty common in environmental testing. So these are DRBC plates, or rose bengal agar, and it's used to isolate different molds. So if you were to test your facility for any potential contaminants, you would do more of like an air testing. And then there's also ways that you can test the surface when you're growing in your lab, and there's paddle tests that can assist you with that. But I'm trying to focus more on what a typical mushroom grower would observe. So this is some trichoderma mold right here. It starts off as white as mycelium. So one of the most important things about growing mushrooms is being constantly observing your jars, your plates, because you want to catch contamination early before it spreads. It can be very hard to get rid of it, so it's important to prevent it from happening. I also brought some plates with me. If anyone's interested in looking at some trichoderma or penicillium molds, I brought those up here. Yeah, you can pass these around too. So yeah, if you ever see this, get rid of it as quickly as possible.
Did you throw out the whole thing, or did you pick out that piece and take it out?
So I would go outside or away from your growing area, throw out all of the substrate, because there could be spores in the rest of the substrate that you don't see, and then make sure that you clean it out thoroughly with a decontaminant, and you want to remove it from your grow area. And then best practices is to change your clothing, make sure you have clean garments before you go back in, because you could reintroduce the spores back into your grow. So on this slide here, it shows aspergillus, which is black mold. This is one of the most dangerous molds that you can come across, especially Aspergillus niger and Aspergillus flavus. They produce aflatoxins, which can cause chronic damage to your body, so it's harmful to both the cultivator and the consumer. And in this picture to the right, it shows trichoderma mold that is infested what looks like a monotub. I posted this picture here to show that you can still get fruiting bodies even though there's trichoderma that is totally infesting this grow space, which leads me to the next slide, which I'm going to talk about mycotoxins. So mycotoxins is a chemical that is produced by molds. These chemicals are not destroyed by cooking. They subside in the substrate, and then they can be brought up by the mushroom fruiting bodies. So they're poisonous to humans. One way to test for mycotoxins are these strip tests. They're fairly inexpensive, about $10 for a strip test. It's like a pregnancy test. And in order to test for mycotoxins, you could take either the fruiting bodies or your substrate, dilute it out in water, and then put a test strip on there, and you would get a positive or a negative result. We used to do this a little bit more extensively in cannabis testing, but one of the reasons that I bring this up is because if you received a product that appeared to be, a healthy mushroom, but it was growing in a moldy environment, it can still carry these mycotoxins. And especially in today's world with decriminalization and the popularity of microdosing, I feel that these mycotoxins pose a risk to some of the consumers if they don't know what they're getting. So I personally believe that it's up to all of these cultivators that are out there to use their integrity, know where you're getting your mushrooms from, and when in doubt, throw it out. So that's kind of my spiel on all of that. I hope that in the future, this movement moves towards a safer environment for the consumers. I think that it could come down to simple screening procedures that are less than $10 to make sure that your mushrooms don't have any mycotoxins, and when in doubt, throw it out. I can't iterate that anymore, and much love. I brought a bunch of turkey tail cultures for anyone interested, and then there's an email sign-up sheet where I have a newsletter of where we'll be out throughout the year selling our gourmet mushrooms, and I have some cards too if anyone's interested. Cultures are free, so whoever is interested in growing turkey tail, it's one of my favorite mushrooms. It can grow on hardwood sawdust. That's what I recommend. But so turkey tails is it's a medicinal mushroom that it has a lot of immune boosting properties to it. So you can use it in a tea, an herbal tea. There's some studies out there that it's antimicrobial, anti-tumor, but you can research more of that online. Does anyone have questions? Yep.
So I know trichoderma is one of the most common contaminants for at-home cultivation. Do
Yep.
those produce mycotoxins as well that can be dangerous? Or is that
Yeah, so they do. They don't produce as dangerous mycotoxins as aspergillus, but they do, and yeah. So I feel like the best way to prevent mycotoxins is to not have any mold in the first place. But yeah, any other questions? Yep.
So the testing strips are used for substrate?
Yep, you can test them with substrate, and you can test them with fruiting bodies.
So if I were to receive mushrooms, and they were like fresh, could you test a fresh mushroom?
Yep. So what you would have to do is you'd have to grind up the mushroom and put it in a sterile bag and dilute it with sterile water or another media, like just buffered Peptone water,
Okay.
and then you would just do your test strip. So that is just a screening protocol. There's more extensive lab testing that you can do. You can do HPLC, which can test down to parts per billion, but it's a really good screening tool, and it's more helpful than what's in place right now, which is nothing. So, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that's for fresh mushrooms, but the
Yep.
majority of the mushrooms being handed out are dried.
Yep.
That's
So it is actually going to be more concentrated in a dried mushroom because all the water will be extracted, but the mycotoxins will remain. So I think that it's even more important in dried mushrooms.
gotcha.
Yep.
And you can do the same thing, right? Because
Yep.
putting them in the sterilized water, you would just rehydrate them.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Are those
So when
Yep.
So when you get like contaminants like mold and stuff, obviously that gets in the air. Is there a way to tell, like, say if you have a mono tub and that gets contaminated or contaminized, I guess that's the word, if that is more likely to affect your other tubs, or when it's time to just like clean out a room and just like completely scrub the shit out of it?
Yeah.
Or is
So
there-
if I go back to this slide here, so these are DRBC plates, which is a common practice in quality control, that you would take this petri dish and set it in your room, lift off the lid for 15 minutes, and then close that and let it grow for a couple days, and then that's a good indicator test of how clean your room is. So ideally, you don't want any growth on any of those plates, but you can test your air that way. And then another way to test the surface, so like say you want to test the surface of your monotub, you can take one of these paddle testers, and they come pre-sterilized, and then you just open it up, put it on your monotub, and then close it back up, and there should be no growth That's just a good screening test. It's not 100%, accurate because you can't cover the whole surface of the monotub, but at least it's a good indicator. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Good.
What'd you call those air plates?
It's called DRBC.
Do you buy all this stuff from your website?
I don't sell it right now. I'm working on that, but it's I would go through like Thermoscientific or some more reputable science companies.
Camden sells it.
Yep. Maybe talk to the people at Lions Mane in Denver. They might carry some of that stuff. I don't know.
Do you want to? Are you from Lionsman?
Oh yeah, and Matt here from Lions Mane. We don't have any of that yet, but we're definitely working on listening to what people want, and that's a very good one to have around.
Hmm.
Tell us about Lionsman real fast.
Oh, we are an equipment and supply store for everything fungi related. We have a literature section and an equipment and supply and substrate section as well, and we're kind of this next month is our inventory growing month, so very soon we'll be carrying flow hoods with bonsai flow hoods. We have sterilizers right now, and we're in the process of getting feedback from people and kind of dialing things in. We're doing classes specifically on gear as well, where we'll just do a talk on one piece of equipment at a time. A week from today, we're doing talks on sterilizers and why we use sterilizers up here at a mile high. So yeah, that's
Cool.
kind of the deal, and we're just getting to meet everybody, and we just opened up on the 22nd last month.
Can we order online?
Not yet. We're not doing online stuff. Yeah, we're up in Rhino.
Hey Matt, are your classes only $5?
They are. and with the $5 class, you get 10% off everything in the store and the sterilizers themselves. So with an $800 sterilizer, you get $80 off ultimately if you go into the class. So
Cool.
yes,
Thank
thank you.
you. Anyone have any more questions?
I have two quick questions.
Yeah.
Where would one source the test strips if they're interested in testing their mushrooms at home from?
So you're gonna have to look online. It's tough to find them like in a single batch. Usually they sell them, for hundreds of dollars for a lot of them, which I'm kind of working on creating like a consumer-friendly testing package, but it's gonna be tough to find. I would look at some of the more reputable science outlet stores online, like Thermoscientific. Yep.
When it comes to stuff like that, we can always do a cooperative purchase.
Yeah.
Like just buy a bunch of them, then everybody can kind of pitch in as to how many they want.
Cool.
The
Yeah.
other thing would be if you do have an area that's contaminated with trichoderma, how would you go about like eradicating that from your workspace? Like what cleaning supplies would you recommend?
Yeah, so 15% bleach, and there's either sporocide, which is ammonia-based cleaning disinfecting agent, and alcohol. Those are the best. Yep. There's also a product called Sanidate. Sanidate's a good one too. Yep.
Maybe
Yep.
one more question.
Outdoor cultivation, are there the same concerns with contaminants?
So outdoor is a little different because when you're growing indoor, the temperature is typically higher and the humidity is typically higher. So that is going to favor the pathogenic species. And I feel like in outdoor cultivation, the mycelium are more rigorous than those. But there definitely is concerns. It all depends on the environment. So my focus is more on indoor cultivation. But yeah, good question. Thank you.
Is there a point in time where they're much more resilient? I have a lot of luck, like right there after the first flush. I mean, they're almost indestructible. Wash by hand,
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Like the earlier the stages, like petri dishes, they're going to be a lot more sensitive to contaminants, and then the farther along they go. Also, during the time of the year is different. Like right now, the spore loads in the air is very low, so you're going to have more success in winter than say early springtime when all the molds are flourishing. So that's something to consider. But thank you again for all of your time. I'm going to pass this over to Zach, who teaches classes, and thank you.
speak. Yeah, thanks a lot for giving me a minute to speak here.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that Gary has helped me a lot with the classes. He obviously knows what he's talking about. So how did I start teaching classes? I'm with mushroomcult.net. So I teach classes. Said that already. I started because I saw on the Mycological Society that someone asked, can someone show me how to grow mushrooms? And I just said, I can. So she came over, she brought her husband. We spent a few hours going through the whole thing, and she and her husband said, you should teach classes. So I called up Colorado Free University, and I started in July. Me and my wife did our first class in July, and through that same woman that I first taught, she got in touch with Gary and contacted him, and I told him, here's what I'm doing, here's what I want to do, and he supercharged the class, as you can obviously imagine. So instead of me doing once a month with just a handful of people, we've done 13 classes and almost over 100 students. It's been super fun. I can't even believe how fun it is. So the philosophy on my class, from last time Travis talked about his philosophy of giving people easy wins with a ready-to-fruit block and an easy tech that really anyone can do, and I think that's really awesome. When I started, I took the approach of we're going to the deep end. So it's kind of like starting from the other end, and I'm kind of working backwards on adding the easier shortcuts and easier techniques. So why did I want to go on the deep end?
What does it mean to go on the deep end?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. So the deep end is some of the stuff that Gary's talking about, like the laboratory techniques, like stuff that's applied in commercial laboratories for disease control and mycology and all that stuff, like using Petri plates, using agar, sterile technique. It's hard. I want to start with the hard stuff, and so if you can get some coaching on the hard stuff, and then you read about some of the easier techniques, you'll be able to do that without my help. So that was my strategy with starting that. So it's also about, like, what I'm teaching is basically kung fu skills. I'm teaching mind-body awareness so that you can have practice doing the techniques. You can have a teacher, which Gary helps me teach. We walk around and we watch people do the procedures, and we make corrections that you wouldn't probably notice if you've never done it before. So we're observing and we're correcting you so that you can get that mind-body connection and the muscle memory of how do I do a procedure, and we kind of apply it to a few different things that look different, but we kind of point out how this is the same procedure, it just looks different. So we kind of go after that. And we added PF Tech to our class on Saturday, which is basically what's in this tub. It's a modified monotub that has 2 different species of oyster growing on PF Tech in it. You can look at them. They are not looking good because they're not getting enough oxygen. So that's what it would look like if your mushrooms are not getting enough oxygen. Anyway, we'll go on. So what are the classes that we currently teach? We have a lab skills class, we have a grain class, and a fruiting class, which is kind of the 4 steps condensed into 3 classes. The first one is it's a 3-hour class. It's really hands-on. Each student has their own labs set up, so you have every tool that you would use at home. Each student has their own space to learn how to use their own body in that lab setting. So we're kind of condensing stuff that comes from commercial laboratories and figuring out how to do that in your house in a manageable way. So then the students leave with 3 agar plates, one that they did an agar to agar transfer, one that they cloned a mushroom, and a spore to agar. So you kind of learn different techniques. The next class, which we're doing on February 1st, it's a grain class, and so I'm not giving you a recipe, which is really important. I'm giving you a way of thinking about what is grain and how can I use it, and how can I make my own decisions on what grain I want to use. We go like compare and contrast. There's a live demonstration of how to prepare grain, and you get to like actually practice using it. You'll leave with an inoculated grain jar, an inoculated agar plate, and a master agar culture. The last class, which we're doing on February 15th, is we're trying to jam bulk fruiting or bulk substrate and fruiting into the same topic. And again, we're not giving a recipe. we're giving a concept so you can learn what is a bulk substrate and how could I make my own, and some ideas of different ways that you can use bulk substrates. And we're going to build an automatic fruiting chamber out of like a pot growing tent with almost everything that you would need to automate, similar to what he uses for his growing. And that's going to be raffled off in the class, about a $500 value, so someone's going to leave with that. And then we're going to explore a miniature fruiting chamber like this that we're also raffle off, so someone will leave with that. And then every student's going to leave with a fruiting block that's ready to fruit, not with mushrooms that Gary prepares from his farm. So what we accomplished now, which is in big part up to Gary, like he really pushed me and is a huge help. Yeah, like I said, we did about 150 students in the later part of the year, 13 classes, and the cool thing is that several of the students, I don't hear from everybody, but several of the students from the first auger class were able to go to grain and to bulk and to fruiting without my help. Well, I mean, they asked a question or two, but they did it themselves after the auger class, which is hard. It's hard. And so like the future, I want to add a lot of topics, like even the contamination. It's not really a part of our class. That could be a 3-hour class, really. So I want to add that, an in-depth on mushroom biology, genetics, foraging, liquid culture, dirty techniques that are, outdoor basically. And it just goes on and on, all the things that I want to add classes. I'm just waiting for the right time, and I'm a learner. Like, I don't know all this stuff. I'm going to find it out, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to teach it, and we're going to learn it together. And that's part of why I'm here is I want to be a part of building a community. It doesn't have to be my community, because like when I met Gary, like he has transformed the way that I do my mushroom growing. And I took a class yesterday in Boulder, and I learned so much. I can't believe it. I teach the exact same stuff, and I learned so much from that class yesterday. And so if all of you guys are growing mushrooms and you're okay with sharing what you're doing, I'm going to learn a ton. And I know you guys are going to learn from me if you come to my class or we make friends and hang out. Because I do it different than him. Like, we are not exactly compatible. He has different ideas than I do. And it's awesome. The other thing is I love taking, like, this is like an alien creature. I love taking someone who just is like 9 to 5 at the office and introducing them to like this really strange process and a really strange creature. And the best way to get to know this mushroom is to start maybe from spore and follow it through the auger and through the bulk substrate and see what it does when it fruits. Like it's, you can see it responding to the environment. It's amazing. So if I can take one of you and give you some skills that you can get to know this creature and maybe millions of other similar species, it's pretty exciting to open someone up to that. Anyway, that's all I really have. I have cards if you want to check out my website. And yeah, I have a YouTube channel, which I think Gary probably doesn't approve of, because I mess with molds, and I do it not very clean, but it's funny. It's kind of a joke, because I see that some people get so wrapped up in their like technique that they won't even think of any other option. So like I have a video of me doing tissue culture in a public porta potty, and it worked. So anyway, here's my cards.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you for doing that. That was lovely. Is Brian from Colorado Cultures here? No. Okay. Who here has a mushroom like business or something like that? Raise your hands if you have a mushroom business, anything that has to do with mushrooms. What's yours?
I'm Eric Burden, and I
Oh yeah. What's up, man? How you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah.
hanging around Denver.
Cool.
Started in June, and kind of did some beginner classes and just general mushroom knowledge education. That's down at Twisted Root Coffee Shop. So those are weekly. And I'm also partnered with a business partner called Monster
Thank you, man.
Fort Collins down to Pueblo.
And it's every Tuesday at Twisted Root Kava Bar. And basically, what are you going to teach us?
General mushroom knowledge. I do a slideshow. It's about an hour on just kind of catch everybody up on what a mushroom is. And then I do like an hour-long cultivation demonstration, and then like an hour of Q&A afterwards.
Okay, great.
Twisted Root Kava Bar.
Anyone else want to talk about something they're doing? Okay. So the next thing that I had on the schedule was meet your neighbors. And so I'd love it if people would just turn to the 3 or 4 people around you and spend, does 10 minutes seem like enough time, too much time? And just, who are these people and what are they doing? Obviously start with the mushrooms. What have you grown? How did it go? What did you struggle with? You know, where would you like to go next? And then hopefully you can find someone next to you that can help you to get the thing that you need. So I need wood chips apparently. Maybe someone around me has wood chips. So let's do that for 10 minutes. And let me say one more thing. Again, getting back to this idea of the mycelium, which is connections, small connections, thin, weak connections that we make in unexpected ways that end up making a solid body. That would be the idea of this Meet Your Neighbors 10 minutes. So please go. Thank you. That went well. So thank you. What did y'all learn? Throw me out something that somebody like came up with that was helpful or something.
Corn's a good substrate.
Corn's a good substrate. Anything else?
When you do grain-to-grain transfer over a couple of generations, it tends to slow down.
Okay.
Genetic drift.
Genetic drift.
Genetic drift. Thank
Huh.
you.
Yeah, I told you they have a term for it.
We talked a little bit about different species that perform better under certain conditions, temperature, humidity-wise, and maybe that could be something that we talk about in the future.
Okay, great. Oh yeah. So speaking of talking about things in the future, we would like a speaker or two on February 17th. And so if anybody wants to, feels called to speak, come talk to us afterwards. We have a speaker on March 16th. It's right. Is she coming? Michelle Janikin, author of what's the name of the book? Psilocybin mushrooms.
Psilocybin handbook.
The Psilocybin Handbook,
Yeah.
Psilocybin Mushroom Handbook. So Travis has read it, and it's one of the better books, right, on this sort of, yeah. Speaking of that, we do want to talk about psilocybin mushrooms. And, yeah. So we have to be, one of the reasons that we're here is obviously because we love psilocybin mushrooms, some of us. Some of us have never tried it. Some of us want to try it. So we have to be careful in how we talk about it because they are, as I said, the lowest law enforcement priority for the city of Denver. That means local cops and local district attorney are supposed to be barred from using their funds to prosecute you for personal growth and cultivation and use. State can still prosecute you. DEA can still prosecute you. So
That's just City of Denver,
it's
right?
just City of Denver, not Aurora, not Littleton, not Boulder, not the foothills. So, so if people are going to grow on their own, I want to open it up to some ideas from the crowd about ways that they can help to reduce the harms, potential harms, and maximize the benefits of psilocybin mushrooms. Because, as we know, these are extremely helpful compounds. They can be if they're used correctly and with, I mean, correctly is maybe not the right word, but respectfully is a good word, yeah. Any other good words like that?
Mindfully.
Mindfully, yeah.
Intent.
Intentionally.
Stewardship about this.
A stewardship. I like that. So what are some things that we can do or that one could do if one were to grow psilocybin mushrooms and use them in their own? I'll throw out the first one. A lockbox could be good. so that your kids or other people don't get into them? What are some other things that people, harm reduction and benefit maximization? Anybody go ahead, throw it out. Yeah. Dosage, yeah. A scale, a good scale, right? A diary, okay. Good. Why would you want a diary?
Keep track of dosage, see what the trends are,
Keep track of dosage, yeah.
differences.
So you tried this one, this is what happened. Try that. This is what happened. Great. What else?
I'll throw out the obvious set and setting.
Set and setting. What does that mean?
What does that mean? That mean be where you're comfortable.
Be where you're comfortable. That's nice.
I think
Anybody else?
I would, when I think of set and setting, I think of setting as like the external conditions and set being your like your mindset, so your internal conditions. So just trying to optimize both of those for a open experience.
Supported.
Safe.
Safe. Yes, thank you.
In your home. Not on 16th Street Mall.
No.
Yeah, not on 16th Street Mall, please.
I would say that people haven't done is really search around ego and books, Changing Your Mind by Michael Pollan, those type of books where scientifically where you can understand what ego is, and where bad trip might come from, leading from that, and realizing don't worry about it.
Don't worry about what?
That fear or that bad trip, if something's going wrong, and understanding that everything's fine, just walk with it, and understanding that this is just in your head, and that's where the growth is going to come. Whatever your intent was, you said.
Okay.
So understand that part of the brain.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Know that there is no bad trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a bad trip?
Just difficult.
Just a difficult trip. Okay, good.
Just me.
What else we got?
Having someone that can sit with you, a sitter,
Sitter, yeah. That's a great idea.
help you through those difficult experiences, just to know that there's somebody there.
Know that somebody's there, right? Good one. Yeah.
Integration.
Integration. What does integration mean?
Yeah.
Integration meaning either integration by having a personal narrative in a community where you share your stories, all the way to psychotherapists who are trained to work the material with you in many different levels and many different ways to find out what the unconscious is actually saying in that. So there's all kinds of stages in between each of those.
Okay, and where can people find integration?
Well,
I know a place.
Well, actually, MAPS has not taken
Yeah.
their integration list down yet. They were supposed to have taken it down in December. You can also meet people at the NOAC Society, and you can always find out who the therapists are in the community, and finding out through that. And you can also ask me, and I can give you some references, referrals.
Thank you. Yeah, MAPS.org, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, has a list of about 20 therapists in Colorado that'll help you do integration. And
Also, Enduring Love.
Enduring Love.
has a list. And
Yeah.
there's always therapists at the NOAC Society meetings, and we talk about integration a lot there as well.
great. Yeah, please.
I think also understanding that they are not for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and there are some people that probably should not try them.
Yeah. Who do you think shouldn't try them?
People with underlying mental conditions, bipolar disorder can be something that might not want to
Mm-hmm.
get into it.
Why? What could go wrong if they did that?
It could, I guess, increase the symptoms. I mean, it could go.
Agitation, yeah. Agitation for sure. Yeah.
Maybe start slowly.
Oh, that's a good one. Start slowly. I like that one. Yeah.
Or not.
Oh, I was literally going to say,
Oh, we start.
try it and figure out what works for you.
Great.
Rock to your own beat.
Great. Lindsay, this is Lindsay. She's had some thoughts on. You just go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Lindsay. I'm on the board of the Denver Mushroom Co-op. I'm also a registered nurse. I have some experience dealing with people under acute drug intoxication, as patients in the emergency room, and then my own personal experience with these substances. The thing that I really wanted to talk about today, I'll just be really brief about it, is that as far as I know, this does not exist anywhere else. This community and how we're congregating right now and communicating with each other, we're setting a precedent for this. So one thing that I would like to take forward with all of us moving into this is creating a safe space. This community is the safe space.
if you're utilizing these substances, it's really important that you're doing this with people that are supportive and that are knowledgeable about what you're getting into. I do have some concerns that this type of community can be attractive to people that can be very manipulative and abusive. So I feel like it's very important that you vet carefully who you're choosing to go into these spaces with and who you're doing integration work with. As we all know, psychedelics kind of promote a state of neuroplasticity within our mind, which also makes us vulnerable to people planting thoughts and ideas inside of your mind. So just be aware of who you're inviting into your space when you're vulnerable. There's really no right or wrong way to use these substances. There are people that microdose every other day that have great results. There are people that take huge doses once in their life and never do it again. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So a red flag to kind of be aware of is if someone is telling you how to utilize these things or how not to. I mean, we can give you a pretty good list of things not to do while you're tripping, such as driving, making important life decisions, but things like that. But overall, you know, if you want to do 5 grams 4 times a year, that's your business. And if someone's coming and telling you, trying to, you know, give you their guideline, you know, take it as with a grain of salt, as recommendation, but it's so personal for every one of us. I think it's really important that we all maintain our kind of cognitive liberty in that way, and don't let a whole lot of other outside influences tell you that there's the wrong way to do these things. So, I mean, that's really the gist of it. Just try to surround yourself with people that are open-minded, that have, and maintain your boundaries, and just be aware that there are people that will utilize these things to manipulate others. So, that's really my spiel. Thank you.
Say a word about judicial harm?
Yeah, and I just want to add about judicial harm, right? Prohibition shows us, you know, that this is all, that's what's dangerous about all this. Keeping all the information separate and keeping us from sharing and keeping us from having pillars of information to consult to do this safely. So yeah, just keep in mind that city and county of Denver, that the police are not going to use their resources, but that doesn't mean that if you're flagrant that the feds won't come in and ruin your day.
And on judicial harm, they're collecting signatures in California to decriminalize there, so if anybody wants to spread the word on that, do so. A couple more items of business and then we'll close the meeting. I want to say there's the No-Code Northern Colorado Hemp Expo, which is coming in late March, has a mushroom pavilion, and they are interested in people with mushroom businesses renting booths from them. And so I guess come talk to me afterwards if you're interested in that. Yeah, I'd love to have good mushroom growers there, and people that I know and trust, and that the community can trust, not so much about me. That's about it. Like I said, next, anybody else? More announcements, things they want to say? Okay, we'll work on that later. So February 17th is the next thing, Monday here. Yes,
If you want to sign up for our email list and you haven't already, come see me in the front at the end of the meeting and I'll grab your email and add you to the list. So then I'll send out agendas and things for our next meeting, and I'll probably send out a call for speakers for their next meeting, and also see who's interested in collectively purchasing the test strips.
Great. Yes.
Small one, but early bird tickets to Telluride Mushroom Festival just went up.
Nice. Cool.
Everyone in this room would really enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I have one more announcement.
Yeah, please.
On February 23rd, there is a meeting for Women's Leadership in Psychedelics. So that was a group that Danny started and is carrying on. So we meet, and the next one is at Coco Pelli Brewing on February 23rd at 5 o'clock. So ladies, join the Facebook group, stay updated, share your stories, and come on out. 5 o'clock, and it's the Facebook group is just Women's Leadership in Psychedelics.
Okay. Great. So once again, next meeting, February 17th. I guess right here. Let's have it right here. We're looking for a bigger space, and but we're gonna have another one here, and hopefully we'll have found a bigger space by then, and we can announce it at the next meeting, and so that no one gets lost. So come right back here, February 17th, if you would. And that's it. Thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful to see all of your lovely faces. I hope that you made some connections that will last a little bit longer. Hang out here and talk, and then go over to the pizza place and talk.
If you want to.
We have this place till 9.
Oh, okay, never mind. Don't go to the pizza place. Stay right here. Buy burritos upstairs, buy coffees upstairs. Thank you so much for coming.